And one of the main things that I found extremely disturbing was to find out how much the MSM, the mainstream media, had lied to us. That I found extremely heartbreaking.
Hi everyone, Kay Loves Tarot here. We've got a wonderful friend, Star Lordess, in the room. Hey, Star.
Hey Kay.
Hey, so yes, we're going to be going over a few current topics at the moment. The title of the video is What in the World is Going On? And our wonderful friend Star is actually going to help explain a few things. And this isn't anything, to do with things that are what many would call conspiracy theorists. This is down to a hell of a lot of research, a hell of a lot of digging. At the end of the day, we looked. And we're actually going to let you know, and our wonderful friend Star Lordess is going to let you know exactly what we've been looking into. So, Star, why don't you say hi to everyone?
Hello, everyone. This is also going on my channel, your community, my community. And hello and welcome to everyone who will be ultimately watching this video.
Lovely.
I think it's an incredible video myself. Like I can't tell you how important I feel this topic is. Well, it's several topics rolled into one. We're kind of taking a look here behind the scenes of what has been going on in the world the past 3 months since all of this rolled in. Now, Kay, this is really interesting how I got involved in all of this.
Yeah, I think that's where we should start, by how the hell you got involved with all of this. I know that I gave you a little bit of a helping hand, but I want you to tell your story.
Yes, you gave me one hell of a helping hand here, let me tell you. I want, for the viewers, just a little bit of a backstory here. I want to let everyone know how I sort of got involved, and I'm very grateful that I did. Kay, thank you again for all of your help here. But I want to bring everything back to, December of 2018. Do you remember this? A year and a half ago, Kay? We've been friends for a couple of years now, and I remember talking to you, having an extensive conversation with you about the age of Aquarius. You remember that conversation, right?
I do. That blew my mind.
Yes, exactly. You kind of blew my mind when I blew your mind with Age of Aquarius stuff, but you blew my mind in return. So this was definitely a quid pro quo situation with the two of us that day. Turned out to be a pretty important day. I'm glad I listened to my instincts. But I remember when I was telling you about the whole Age of Aquarius ushering in. Now, remember back in December 2018, the world was what it was. It was before all this happened. So things were quite different. I remember back in the day, there was Brexit was on the table, didn't look like it was going through. There were so many things going on in the news, in the world news and everything back then. But I remember when I told you about the Age of Aquarius and how it has to usher in, and we only have till 2023, which is not a long time away, to bring in that Age of Aquarius, which is about sort of even distribution. And I said to you at the time, I don't know how we're going to get there from this standpoint. Back in 2018, December of 2018, things were pretty crazy, as the world has been for several years now. But it was kind of really intense back then. And I said, I don't know how we're going to get there from here. It's such a short jump to 2023. And then I remember your words, and you said to me, what would you say if I told you? And that's when you laid all this stuff on me, and many more. Some of it I had written down, which I'm glad I did. And you told me at the time, do you realize that Brexit will pass? And I said, at that time, it didn't look like it was going anywhere near that, right? Okay. And you said that this is what's expected to happen, right? We're going to be going through massive changes in the world very soon, okay? And some of the things you had mentioned about the buildup of the military, shutdown of the globe, global reset, invest in gold. You told me gold and precious metals at the
I
time.
remember that.
Yes, and you had mentioned something about the fiat system will change. The treasury will be taken over, like all this stuff. And I was like, what? Like, remember, we're going back to 2018. None of this seemed bizarre. Okay, so you started to explain a little bit about how things were going to unfold, and I was like, and then you started getting specific about it. Do you remember that? About the fiat system changing, and then all this stuff. We'll get into a little bit more about that later on when we deal with the Nasara and stuff. But I remember at the time when you told me, my instincts were saying, my mind was saying, this is absurd. Okay, this is a really wild, out there theory. I have an open mind, so I was willing to listen. I always listen to people, but I'm the kind of person that I need the proof, right? The proof is going to be the thing for me. So I put it aside, but I remember thinking at the time, my instinct said, pay attention to this. It's going to be important one day. And then I proceeded, and I'm glad I did. I went upstairs after we got off the phone, and I told my husband and my best friend, who were at the dinner table waiting for me, and I told them what you said. And I remember the stunned look on their face, and they looked at me, and my friends said, so gold, huh? That's what I need to invest in. And I said, okay, let's eat, let's carry on. It was like one of those things. What can you say when somebody is telling you something like this? Now, I was just like, okay, like I said, open mind. And I always try to trust my instincts. Okay, so fast forward, life went on. Things started happening. And we just carried on our friendships and our YouTube channels. Life went on.
And it stood the test of time.
Exactly, right? And then for me, where everything changed was in January of this year, 2020. Okay, I had done my astrology videos about the age of Aquarius and so forth. What was coming in, I was sensing things, I was feeling things. And then all of a sudden, something really caught my attention in January of this year was when, let's see, I think I have the date here. Yeah, it was January 3rd when that happened.
I know what you're going to say.
You know what I'm going to say? Okay, hang on. Here we go. Now, January 3rd was when the strike that killed Iran, the Master General, remember Soleimani?
Yeah.
When that strike happened, I think everybody, it was like right, coming into the year, everybody was like, what just happened here? Okay, now I remember most people probably did get nervous when we heard that. So at this point, I decided to look into, the United States was involved in that, obviously. President Trump had, was behind it, ordered this. I saw the presser where he said that, I did what I did, and I'm sure he had his reasons, but I'm the kind of person who has to look. Okay, so I remembered looking into the background. Now I was like, okay, what is this administration doing? What is it about? I always kept my mind open when it came to President Trump. I, again, used my instincts when he was first elected. I wasn't really, I have to admit, wasn't really paying much attention to the mainstream news for the past few years. I tried to steer clear of it because I already kind of got a sense that they weren't exactly being truthful. But I decided to at that point because I figured, well, let's just look into this. And when I looked into the administration, I was actually in awe of what had been happening here. Nothing came out of the Soleimani strike, but I was like, something, I don't know. My instincts were telling me something is up here. Something is definitely going on. But again, I mean, all I could find out was what the administration had been up to from 2016 until now. So I just went about my business again. And then what happened was the big shutdown of the world happened, right? Okay. So now I'm scrambling, like most people are scrambling, trying to figure out what in the world is happening here. Well, that's where things got really interesting. Very, very interesting, right? Okay. So I remember you and I having a conversation when this thing first happened.
Yeah.
And you were like, what's going on here? What's going on? And I said, Kay, you know, weren't you the one who talked about the global reset?
Yeah.
And you said, is this what's happening? Is this playing out now?
I remember it so well. And the thing is, it even shocked me that it never occurred to me that that is exactly what this was. I was literally so wrapped up in like media fear, media panic. And it was sort of like, what the hell? And that only lasted 2 weeks, by the way, because I very quickly snapped out of it. But at the same time, it never occurred to me. And I remember it was you that was like, hey, you've already spoke about this. You know exactly what's going on. Remember.
Right. And, you know, we helped each other through this very, very confusing time. In the early days of this was very, very confusing. And then, of course, the digs started coming. We started looking up to find out any information we could possibly find. Eventually, we came to the conclusion, because at the end of the day, I think well, not everybody, obviously, but a lot of us realized that, you know, here's the stats: 46 million people died from the AIDS epidemic. The numbers for this pandemic were not anywhere near that, and that never shut down a world. The world is shutting down over this. Didn't make sense to most people. And see, in the beginning, like you said, the mainstream media caused panic and fear to everyone. People like you and I were scrambling to try to find out, because we didn't accept what was happening on their level. We knew something else was going on, and we started digging, and we kept digging. And you had been on this trail a lot longer than I have, so you were a little bit more processed through it, and you did help me through it.
I think I've been on it since the back end of 2017. When I really started realizing that something big was coming. And it was just such a huge shock to the system back then, but I'd had enough time to process it. And that's why I couldn't understand my reaction in March with the lockdown, because I already knew this stuff was coming. And do you know, I just felt so out of sorts at the time. And all it took was just a conversation with my good friend Lordess just to shake me back into gear.
Exactly, right? And then we had to go on this journey separately and together, because we would converse from time to time when we would come up with some things. I think we kept each other sane throughout the last 3 months. I really do. You know, I don't know what I would have done without you throughout this whole period. And
I don't know what I'd have done without you.
I mean, especially you were calling me when I was going down. Now, you know, we'll explain to the audience about the red pill thing, because in the Matrix, right, if you want the red pill, you want the blue pill. The red pill tells you the truth, and the blue pill keeps you in fantasy. Well, I mean, I was, like you said, you're already red pilled. You just don't know it. But I went down the factual road. I mean, instinctively, maybe I had taken the red pill, but I think now I needed the facts. I needed the facts to back up my instincts and my intuition. And boy, did I find a lot. I'm telling you, and you know that, because I remember a few times calling you, and I was in tears, and you were helping me process some of the stuff that, you know, we found was extremely disturbing and really sad and so forth. I get a little emotional even just thinking about it, because originally when I went down this rabbit hole, I was actually trying to debunk some of it. I was really saying, no, this can't really be happening, that kind of stuff, right? And the more I went down this rabbit hole, the more I found overwhelming evidence that it was true.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, you know, I've been on this journey with quite a few different people that have come to me and said, "Okay, what's going on?" And I have shown them the way. I've given them the clues. I've led them to resources that do help, because sometimes it's about the questions as well. I always find that if you don't ask the right question, you don't get the right answer, and nobody seemed to know what the right questions were. And we actually got the resources to be able to give us the right questions that lead to the right answers. And I just threw this resource at nearly everybody. And and it is a rabbit hole journey. That's what it is. I mean, people can call it whatever they want, but at the end of the day, I see this as a deep, dark rabbit hole. And the deeper you go, the darker it can get. And it's not for the faint of heart. However, and I've said it many a times in previous videos, the only reason why the darkest crimes that you can imagine have gone on for as long as they have is because good people did nothing. Good people said nothing. And a huge part, and I hope that the majority of the public will respect me and Star for coming out and saying what we're about to discuss in a moment. But at the end of the day, we're not the type of people that can sit there and do nothing and say nothing, especially while we have an audience. And that is the main point to this. So anyway, I'll let you continue, Star. So, you know, moving on slightly.
On that point, Kate,
yeah.
I think that you're absolutely right. We do have a social obligation to at least bring out what we have found. We're not here to tell people what to think or what to do. We're just going to bring about our journey and what we have found that was lurking behind the curtain, you know.
Yes, exactly. So back to your journey. So we got into the lockdown in March, and you know, we started doing all these digs. Let everyone know what you found.
I don't know about that, Kate. Maybe just the surface stuff that I found.
Yeah, do the surface
stuff that I found was incredibly dark. But I don't want to put that on the viewers. It's like you got to go down your own journey and decide how much you want to accept. Like I said, it was very heartbreaking. A lot of the stuff that I did discover was extremely heartbreaking. And one of the main things that I found extremely disturbing was to find out how much the MSM, the mainstream media, had lied to us. That I found extremely heartbreaking. Now, I mean, I think most of us kind of knew that news was slanted and newspaper articles, you know, sometimes. But I don't think, at least myself personally, I don't think I realized to what extent it was. You know, it's like this whole last few months has really, like, my eyes are so open that I feel like there's toothpicks in them and I can never close them again. I'm at the point now where I question everything. Anything important that I see anywhere, I make sure I get to the bottom of it, because I'm so like concerned now about being fooled or led down a road that is not, it's a fantasy. I don't want to take that blue. I've already red pilled. I don't want to take the blue pill anymore. As heartbreaking as it is to know the truth, I'd still rather know it than not know it. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, some of the stuff that both you and I have come up with here, you're really good at finding the stuff that MSM throws out there as fact. You've caught a lot of the stuff that they have done to fool the public, and I appreciate that, and the public does as well, because they don't want to, at the end of the day, who wants to be, you know, fed a lie or a dream or be brainwashed? Nobody wants that.
No, and the thing is with that is that, I mean, I liken, and this sounds absolutely ridiculous to the normal average person that doesn't believe that they are in a fantasy world at the moment, but I liken what's going on at the moment to like the Truman Show, and you know, at the end of the film where he gets sort of across the fake ocean into the stage door, he goes up the steps and out the stage door. It's that moment when he opens the door and sees the real world. That is what happens after you take a red pill, and what the red pill represents is acceptance to know. And it's like the choice to know has got to be yours and yours alone. Nobody can force it on you. We can only drop breadcrumbs. We can only throw little hints, like explaining and showing B-roll over this video of how the mainstream media do lie to you. But at the same time, it's got to be your choice to know. And what I will, I'll let you carry on, Star.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Kay. That's a great point and a great analogy with the Truman Show
Yeah.
stuff. It really is a great analogy. Um, getting back to the MSM, where President Trump comes in here for me, I remember because I watched all the press. I think you did as well. All the pressers he was doing when all of this stuff first happened. Now, I remember in the beginning of all of this, when he did say these words, like when it came down to him signing off on all the stimulus and all this other stuff. You remember when it comes to politics, they have to sign off on one bill, so the other party, the Democratic Party, signs off on another bill. It's give and take, right? And in the beginning, Trump did say that I had to sign off on some things I didn't want to. He did say that. But he said in order to get other things approved, I had to do it. So he did kind of warn people like us who were already in the know of what was going on that, this was happening. And I do believe that what was going on here is things like, I thought it was really bizarre when they announced they were letting go prisoners when all of this stuff was going on. Now, that was really bizarre. Why would you let prisoners out? But I think it's those kinds of things that they did to set him up, to make him look bad. Because now you see, I think that's what I don't have confirmation on that, but I do think that that's what he meant in the beginning of this. Like, be prepared. There's going to be some weird things going on here, and I'm probably going to get blamed for it. But you know what I mean? And that's exactly what happened. And I watched the mainstream media just push everything weird that happened, point the finger on him. Now, come on. No matter what you think about President Trump, it can't always be 100% his fault. If you look at MSM, it's always 100% his fault.
It has been since the 2016 election. I mean, if you actually go back and you actually look at any news reports on his executive orders that have actually helped Americans, if you try to look at any of the good that this guy has done, in mainstream media, you will not find it. And if that does not tell you that there is something wrong here, because it's not the fact that mainstream media print bad things. That's not the problem. The problem is they print all bad things. There is nothing good. There is no variancy there. And that's the problem.
Exactly, right? And this is what made me really take a close look at the mainstream media. Because, now I see that slanted. I start looking at articles. And this is the funny thing, too. I mean, I followed Donald Trump on Twitter, and he had been saying all along, fake news, but I never knew what that meant. I really didn't. I mean, not to the extent of it. I mean, I get it. If the media is always slanted one way, you're going to call it fake news. But I didn't realize exactly what he was talking about until now. And I ended up, like, my own journey down this particular rabbit hole really, really surprised me, because I was like, wow, like, holy, it's so obvious right now. It's so obvious. And I wondered, like, why doesn't he just out them? Like, but he does, if you think about it. He does all the time, constantly on Twitter. But then how is he going to out them? You need the mainstream media to out somebody, right? And he couldn't do it with them because they wouldn't, they won't go along with his narrative. So I understand that. I know we're rambling on here about Trump. We're going to have to explain why we're talking about this. And because me being a Canadian, you being a Brit, how does this American politics fit in with us? But it does. Because
it really does.
If you know the whole picture, it totally does. This is crucial. This is really important to us as citizens of the world.
Yeah,
right?
And the only reason why this is really implicating Britain and Canada alike is for two separate reasons, really. But then again, it's not really separate because everything is interconnected. So there has been, whether viewers want to accept this or not, at the end of the day, I'm just going to put the facts out there. And if viewers don't want to accept it, that is their problem. They will come to terms with this eventually, because this stuff is coming out, you guys. I'm not lying. I wasn't lying 2 years ago when I said what was going to happen now. I'm not lying now when I say what's going to happen next. Everybody is going to find out. So heed
Eventually,
this. Yeah, eventually. Well, it's going to come out before November, put it like that.
Right.
So the reason why Britain and Canada are interconnected in this, and even Australia and the EU, believe it or not, is because of the Pfizergate thing. And I've actually released a hell of a lot of videos on my channel already explaining Pfizergate, explaining Obamagate, and how it's all interconnected. And the reason why we're connected to this is because of an intelligence system called Five Eyes that runs throughout Britain, Canada, Australia, the EU, and it's an intelligence sharing system, and it's an agreement, it's a treaty between all countries in the USA. And when you go in for a Pfizer warrant, it's not right that you get it domestic, so you have to get another country to do it for you, and that's where Britain gets dragged into this, is because they actually got a British spy in the British government to actually give permission for that. Now, I'm not going to go OTT on Pfizergate because that's not what this is about. I've released videos on my channel.
It
is connected.
It's all connected, but yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, it is connected because we had all these bad actors, and when I say bad actors, what I mean is bad politicians from both the UK, Canada, Australia, and the EU and the USA, and they were all plotting to get rid of Donald Trump as president, and they have been ever since he was elected in 2016. And the problem with this is, it brings me back to the mainstream news, is that the mainstream news, and it's very true, you can look this up on Google, that the mainstream news is lobbied by politicians, by special interest. Okay, so when you actually start looking at your anchors, at your producers on these news channels, and looking at who their families are, you're actually going to see that they are either married, related, sibling to members of the Democrat Party. And that is a conflict of interest that the public should be aware of. But for some strange reason, everybody turns a blind eye. And that's how we end up in the mess that we're in now.
Exactly. And what is the main, if you want to call it the main thread that connects all of this together that we're going to be talking about today here, is corruption.
Yeah.
That's really at the main base of all of this, right? And this is where the threads connect to everything that we have found behind the scenes, because, well, everybody else was, in the last 3 months, busy watching and trying to follow the mainstream media, who's confusing them like nobody's business. We were behind the scenes looking at what was going on. I have to tell you, Kay, at times it felt like I was in bizarro land. Like, I was waking up in the morning, finding out what was going on behind the curtain, and then looking at the mainstream. And it was such a polar opposite what the mainstream media was showing and what we saw was going on behind here. And it was very confusing at times. It was like mind-boggling.
Yeah, absolutely.
We would have to get together sometimes and just sort of, get grounded to
level
what was
out,
happening, because it was so bizarre. Like, mainstream media was throwing out like murder hornets and aliens, all this stuff, just to just look over here, and just to keep the public away from the stuff we were looking at behind the scenes. And it's all based on corruption. This is why there's so many branches of this. But yet, when you actually do the research we have done, you see the connection. It's like a big jigsaw puzzle. You put a piece over there, you put a piece over there, you always follow the money. Thank you, Kay, also for putting me in touch with a lot of people around the world. That, I mean, aside from my own group of people, that I was grateful to have met all these people through my YouTube channel. I had a huge resource, people all over the world, from New Zealand to South Africa to Afghanistan. I had people all over the world that I could contact for verification, things like that, just through my own channel, like as well as you have resources through your channel. But you also put me in touch with the people on Twitter and so forth that you need to follow these people, and I'll tell you, these ones will lead you to the other stuff that's going on behind the scenes. So I put that together with the people that I got confirmation from all over the world, spoke to many Americans over this time frame for confirmation for things that the mainstream media was saying was going on. I would get confirmation from them saying that's not happening, that kind of stuff. But I mean, that's me. I just need verification. So I was getting my verification and I felt crazy excited about it. But by the same token, I realized there's a whole big group of people out there who are just following the narrative of mainstream media and have no clue what's happening over here.
Absolutely.
And they're very scared. They're very scared. They're very frightened. They have no idea. They've got all kinds of, there's a lot of theories out there. I get it. But when it comes to this particular theory that you gave me, it becomes, it's a theory when it's just, maybe it's an idea, it's out there, it could happen, could not happen, but there's no proof. But it ceases to be a theory when it starts playing out in real life.
And when you see documents.
Exactly. But a lot of the things you started saying, I was paying attention because you also had mentioned there is going to be, the Vatican is going to go down, the royal family, all of this, like a lot of the stuff that now is hanging in the balance, right? Hollywood, all of that stuff, it's all connected because guess what? Corruption connects it all. Connects all of it together. From what I understand, what President Trump's trying to do here is he's trying to get rid of the bad actors here. And the bad actors are the corrupt people.
That's
right?
Exactly what he's doing.
And remember, the corruption is in all areas. Every area where there's big dollars, there's corruption.
I mean, right? We've actually heard, and this is not actually documented. This is just something that I heard someone say. And I'm not going to reveal source. Like I say, people can take what they want from this. I'm just going to leave this at a bit of a theory. But we've actually heard from members of the Royal Navy actually saying we're getting a little bit sick and tired of carting the Queen's heroin around. I mean, when you hear stuff like that, you're bound to think, oh my God, that is so fake. But when you actually look into her wealth, when you look into her status, when you actually look deep about her titles and styles, and you actually find out that she should never have even been coronated in the first place, because under British law, you should never be coronated under anything other than your natural name. And she was married at the time. She was married at the time she was coronated. She should have been coronated as Mountbatten, and she wasn't. And unfortunately, a lot of Brits are going to have a hard time struggling to understand why we are not going to have a monarch next year. And it's things like that that we're now starting to see play out. I mean, we've actually seen documents from the FBI come out and say that and the DOJ, they are going to extradite Andrew to testify. Right. And
absolutely.
It's things like that that we're starting to see play out that we were warned of a few years ago. And as far as Donald Trump's role in all of this goes, you don't have to like the man at all. Not many do, but you cannot fault what he is doing. And to be fair, this does, for me personally, and I think for Star too, it tugs on heartstrings when you actually start to see the executive orders he's put out on human trafficking. And when you actually start to see the good that's going on, when, he only came out in his press conferences not long ago and actually told everybody, we've got a human trafficking and drug trafficking operation going on at the moment, and we are putting a stop to it. The USA is not penetrable. I think General Milley said the USA is not penetrable at the moment.
Reasoning. Good question. We've moved a tremendous number of boats and ships to the area of, different areas of exactly where you're talking about, because we're tired of drugs pouring into our country from other places. And we're tired of seeing drugs pouring into different parts of Latin America, South America, and just coming into our country. Now we've got them stopped at the border, and they're trying to do it by sea. So we stop them at the border and frankly, with the help of Mexico. Mexico right now has 27,000 soldiers on the southern border. They never had any soldiers. They're doing that because I've asked them to do it. That's the only reason they're doing it. They have 27,000 soldiers. So now they're trying to bring it in by boat and by ship, the drug lords and the people doing drugs and trying to destroy our country from inside with drugs. And we're hitting them very, very hard. And that's why we're doing it.
Activities that U.S. assets are targeting, or?
Say it?
Is it beyond narcotics? Are there other illicit activities that
Well,
U.S. assets
there are
involved in?
the activities of human trafficking, and especially with respect to women, and as you know, proportionally, it's mostly women. And it's a horrible thing. It's a horrible thing, and there's never been a time like it. And it's because of the internet, and this is all over the world. But for the most part, they're coming through, in this country, they're coming through the southern border, but we're hitting them very hard. They have tremendous illegal trafficking in women and children also, but mostly in women. And it's illegal, and it's horrible, and it's disgraceful. And I've seen things that are an absolute disgrace. And we're trying to knock them out, and we're knocking them hard.
What was going on there?
Bad things were happening to her in a certain country, and we're really under the feeling that we should keep it somewhat private until she's already been freed. And I have to tell you, General Milley and his people were unbelievable. They were not playing games. General Milley does not play games. They got her out of a certain country where she was.
So don't even try. And it's things like this that we were warned a year or two ago that's now playing out.
Exactly. I did my own research on the human trafficking. I was absolutely appalled. It was one of those things where, you know, taking that red pill sometimes can be a bitter pill to swallow. When I did my research that particular week on the human trafficking, and I came up with a Forbes magazine had done an article. It's $150 billion industry.
Yeah.
Wow. I was like blown away. Again, you know, like what you were saying earlier about the Queen and so forth, you know, where there's smoke, there's usually fire. And let's face it, over the years, we have heard, I know myself, when I was younger, the people who were older than I was, I mean, they talked a lot. My particular uncle that I was very close to was very, very intelligent, very well-read man. And he told me a lot of stuff about, you know, back in the day. And I started reading, and it's kind of ironic when I think back now. I think I have a picture of myself at age 15, suntanning on the front lawn in Ottawa, because I used to live in Ottawa, Canada back then. And I was reading a book, JFK and the Life and Times of JFK. I was interested in my library back then consisted of astrology books and American politics. For whatever reason, I have no idea, but it seems like now I've come full circle now with it. I don't know, maybe this is where I was, you know, meant to, this is my destiny, you know, is now colliding here. But yeah, getting back to the human trafficking thing, it was a very, very tough thing to look at these articles that I found, and who was all involved in all of this stuff, and then the underground tunnels, and then we went down that whole rabbit hole of the tunnels, and to understand that there was actually the most covert war going on that I have ever witnessed. I mean,
Yeah.
This was so bizarre. I mean, what was going on? Well, look over here with the pandemic. What was going on? The operatives who were in the tunnels, blowing them out. And people I talked to had no idea this was going on. And I asked them, like, did you hear about all of these little earthquakes going on in the United States? And they, yeah, it's sort of in the background of the news. They would mention it. I'm like, you don't think that's odd? It's like, yeah, because from what we understood, those were because they were blowing out the tunnels. They were trying to collapse the tunnels. There's so much stuff going on underground. There was an entire war being fought underground, and people had no idea this was going on.
And
You
yeah,
know,
and the thing is, a lot of the locals who were near these earthquakes were actually coming forward, like on Facebook and YouTube, and saying it didn't actually sound like an earthquake. It sounded like an explosion with a
Exactly.
vibration.
And this is another thing, because you can't go to the mainstream media to find the information that we were looking for. So a lot of the independent journalists that we found, they were the ones who were going to these places, showing stuff and showing footage of the tunnels, the manholes, right, where the fire was coming out. And it's like they were putting it out there, and it's like, why isn't the mainstream media covering any of this? For whatever reason, I have no idea. Maybe it was meant to be this way. It was supposed to be a covert operation. But again, it's coming back to corruption. Everything always comes back to corruption. The reason they were doing this was because President Trump did say that that was one of his campaign promises, to eradicate drugs on the streets, and he also wanted to eradicate the human trafficking, was big on his list. Now, when I went back in January to look at what this administration had been doing, I saw what they had been doing, and I was like very impressed, especially on the human trafficking thing. I'm like, I knew it was a thing, but I didn't know it was a big problem. I didn't know what huge problem it was until I actually did the digs on it. And then I realized, oh my goodness, this is horrifying. This is awful, very painful. Some of the stuff was very painful to see. But I'm glad that I have the knowledge.